During the holidays, we usually, I think, end up using a lot more of the convenience food options. So we're choosing refined foods and very processed foods, and those are typically very high in your fat and your sodium and in your sugars. So to help you out with the holiday and festive season, we've chosen a few commonly used foods in the South African homes, which most of us are probably going to use during the festive season. What we want to learn to do is really decrease the salt intake and the sodium intake in our foods. In terms of the recommendations, we shouldn't be eating more than 6 grams, which is about a level teaspoon of salt a day, which equates to about 2,400 milligrams of sodium a day. It's very important to pay attention to the sodium content because that's often what's written on our labels. So it's a good idea to get used to looking at your label and identifying what the sodium content is of that food. So when it comes to the soy sauces, we've got 3 here, and they're all going to give you exactly that same soy sauce taste, but they differ hugely in the sodium content. So read your labels. The soy sauce over here, which is about 15 grams of sodium, whereas this is 11 grams, and this one goes all the way down to 6 grams. Tomato sauce is one of the more popular foods, especially with our kiddies. They love to squeeze it all over their food, and it's another food that does tend to have quite a lot of sodium. It's worth learning to read the labels because you can easily halve the sodium content by choosing between your different brands. Another important thing to remember is that the sodium content is important, but it's also about portion control. So when you're actually having your tomato sauce, look at the portion size, which is about a tablespoon, 15 mils, and physically squeeze it out onto your tablespoon and put that onto your food, just to get an idea of the correct recommended portion that you should be having it in. I find often people are eating a lot more than the recommended portion size. So when they read a label and they look at the portion size and it says X amount, they're probably eating double or triple that because our portion distortion is happening so much all over the world. Stocks are often used in our cooking to give that extra kick of flavor. Now, a general rule of thumb is that when it comes to stock, the more dense it is and the more solid it is, the higher the sodium content is likely to be. So when you're doing your stock shopping, try and go for a more liquid option, and the more liquid that you can get, the better. So look for your more liquid stocks over the sort of dense blocks, and I find it's also a lot easier to control the amount that you're using when it's a liquid as opposed to a solid cube. I think a lot of people are so put off when they read labels because they look so complicated, but definitely picking up 2 and comparing them per 100 grams makes it a lot easier to actually compare the ingredients. Packet gravies are a really great convenience option, having to just add a bit of hot water to it to reconstitute it. What is important to remember though, that anything in a packet and in a powder form is likely to be high in sodium, especially something like gravy. Best option is actually to make your own at home, or otherwise you could use something like a tomato and onion relish, which you make into a lovely gravy for your chicken or your roast, and perhaps bulk it up with pureed onions or some garlic or some other vegetables like carrots and mushrooms to give it a bit of thickness. If I had to choose probably my top 3 tips, I would say with every meal have a bottle of water on the table or a glass of water. The water is just going to also help to take the edge off your appetite. It helps to slow down your eating, which is great. Also with every meal have vegetables and have salad on the table, and so they do a great job of filling you up and helping you to eat less of the other higher kilojoule foods that will be on our tables during the silly season. So definitely the water, the salads, and then another tip would be to try to skip salt this season. So lower your sodium intake and avoid shaking salt onto every meal before even tasting it.